Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Earth, Wind, and Fire episode of the Rovertime podcast, number
You shine
18.
star, no matter who you are. Shine bright to say. All right, I'll stop.
Of course, welcome back to Dr. Manhattan.
Good to be
Stan
back.
is here with us.
Good evening.
And we got Crow once again, and our newbie Duffer.
Hi, guys.
All right, so as the title suggests, we're going to talk about the string of natural disasters, or as Trump likes to say, disasters that have been striking the North America lately.
It's a lot of fun.
I don't know much about the earthquake, but that hit Mexico, and people died, which is not good. And then we have, for the wind, we got the Hurricane Irma, and then we got fires in the Northwest. So everything's crazy this week. But obviously the big story is Hurricane Irma. But we're not near Florida, but we can still talk about it.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And people are already blaming this thing on the climate change, mankind, CO2 emissions. Yeah, let's just start with the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration's quotes on this. In summary, neither our model projections nor the 21st century, nor our analyses of trends in Atlantic hurricanes and tropical storm counts over the past 120 plus years support the notion that greenhouse gas-induced warming leads to large increases in either tropical storm or overall hurricane numbers in the Atlantic. It is premature to conclude that human activities, and particularly greenhouse gas emissions that cause global warming, have already had a detectable impact on Atlantic hurricane or global tropical cyclone activity. So basically, people blaming this on climate change, bullshit. The number of hurricanes, no relation to the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere.
But Crow, did they run that by Bill Nye, the I don't know shit about anything science guy? Because he's really the
Bill Nye's
foremost authority, even though he's the one that should be.
Mechanical engineer means you can only talk about tangible things.
I mean, heck, the co-founder of the Weather Channel doesn't believe in this stuff. It's like he created a channel dedicated to the weather, and he doesn't see these. But people like Sarah Silverman and Michael Ian Black, they know better.
Hey, you don't diss Michael Ian Black and Sarah Silverman. They're actors.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Apparently Sarah Silverman thinks that fires started by a young boy with fireworks is a result of science deniers.
And
apparently she needs a little science reality check, because fires that has nothing to do with any of the global.
It's weird how fires aren't like the Western fires, like actually like a naturally occurring thing, and it clears the brush and debris and makes for healthier forests in the future.
The Western fires? Yeah,
like it does. A lot of people don't understand this, but if you take a look at gymnosperms, like pine trees, you have those pine cones. How do you think they break in nature? They break in response to heat from forest fires, and then they open and then spread their seeds around. That's how they reproduce.
With the nutrients from the ash, right?
Yeah, with the nutrients from the ash, exactly.
Yeah, but the only problem is now that there are houses in the way. That's the only reason why the wildfires inherently bad now.
And the problem with this is that there is a way to control that. I've heard that there are people in this state who they're basically trying to get controlled burns to be more of a regular thing, so they can go out and prevent these huge fires. And because especially where I'm from, like California is the ecology of it severely. There's a lot of fires that happen here, and that's how shit just works around here primarily. Essentially, we decided to turn a death world into a state. Well, now you got people who are saying, no, you can't go doing this to the environment because you're going to hurt it. It's like, bitch, this is how the environment fucking works. If anything, we're trying to facilitate it so no one dies and no one has to get evacuated. Like
with the drought,
exactly.
Like it was part desert already, and it's not meant to.
Yeah.
There's a tricky thing where you need to manicure. Well, you need to take care of your forests, and part of that actually kind of detracts from the foresty nature of it, because you actually send people out to clear debris. It's kind of like in the German sort of Black Forest region. There isn't as much wildlife just because it's been overhunted, but they almost never have forest fires because there's literally people who are going in and clearing stuff out. where the major problem comes is that there's, of course, in large continental countries like ours, there's places that are near inaccessible. So you can't really send people in cheaply and efficiently to try and clear out areas. And it's really hard to do controlled burns in those areas too. But campers, those campers, they like to go into those hard to reach areas.
Yeah. They're like, let's start some fires, guys. And it's like, can you not?
I wonder what kind of firework it was. Like if he was like, oops. Like, was it a Roman candle, or was it like an actual like?
Whoopsie daisy! Oh no! What are we gonna do, guys? Oh.
Well, I know that there was a fire that was started recently. I think. Oh hell, where was it? It's not far off from where I live, but somebody started a small fire because it was just like this homeless dude, and they didn't. The fucking wild thought never thought, hey, maybe if I could just stop stoking this fucker, I actually might be able to restart it up again later. And I won't have to worry about burning the whole fucking place down. But of course, no, that's too logical for a meth head. So we had a small fire there, and I think I'm pretty sure that's one's contained. And it's like, guys, stop it.
It's funny how someone over here in like a more, I guess, humid climate, like, a fire isn't really a problem, but like out there, like one person can screw up everything.
Oh yeah. It's a glass house, and everybody has rocks.
Yeah, it doesn't. Over here on the East Coast, it never really gets that dry like it does.
Oh, good for you.
West Coast. Well, say that when you got 80 to 90% humidity in the middle of summer, and you walk outside and sweat in the shade.
Let's just both agree that both coasts suck. And they not suck, but they both.
Yours sucks worse than mine.
None of us sucks worse right now than at Florida.
Oh yeah. Hurricanes.
Yeah, I've seen some recent shots. Miami, it's like New Orleans was after Katrina.
Well, Miami got spared because it went around and hit the west part of Florida. They were going to get the worst of it, but now it's like near Tampa.
The hurricane was just like, I must have my CSI Miami, and then just avoided it.
Now, is the problem that because of the new trajectory, it's actually in line for 3 different cities instead of just being in line for Miami, which they thought it would go over, then play out over the Atlantic? I'm
not so sure.
Because I think it's Tampa, and what's the one that starts with a P that's higher up than that?
Pensacola?
I forget. But the thing which I was seeing is because of the trajectory change, it's going to be hitting cities which traditionally haven't been. And they're not quite sure if they'll have the water management to actually deal with it, plus the high winds. Whereas traditionally it's usually gone on the east. So it's gone more towards the other side. And because of that, it's more predictable, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, the hurricane is actually larger than the state itself, and it is seemingly going over, like, as far as the width.
It's tremendous. Frankly, we have the best hurricanes.
Over the, the eye is going over the middle of, essentially right up the state. It's pretty, yeah. I did kind of find humor, and I didn't get a chance to confirm this, but apparently some sheriff somewhere had to tell people not to shoot fireworks at the hurricane.
I thought the whole event was a big joke, but I think some people might actually be dumb enough to be like, yeah, I'll do that. Why not?
People would definitely do that. They would. And that's, this
is the country where you can, well, okay, maybe not. Still, I'm surprised there weren't more people.
It's Florida.
Well, like I said, our hurricanes are the biggest, the best anywhere. You could ask anyone. Tremendous.
Yeah,
tremendous.
But yeah,
chances are, just like with Hurricane Katrina, Walmart's probably going to do a better job than FEMA. Yeah, just get rid of FEMA already. God, we don't need it. Private disaster relief does a better job anyway.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that next when we get around to the Red Cross. But yeah, as far as the hurricane, all I know is that it got made landfall. What is that? 4 hours ago at 3:35 Eastern time, and I haven't watched too much after that, but I saw the guy standing there on the street like a smart person, whoever wanted the guy that works for the Weather Channel. I guess like.
And was he trying to go like trying to fight?
Yeah, he's like, I'm waiting for the eye of the storm. That's the most magnificent part. It's like so awesome, and I'm like, well, you're gonna be right in the 130-mile-an-hour winds right before you meet that eye of the storm. I guess he knows what he's doing.
Wazz, I've posted a link into the group chat from New York Times, and they're tracing the trajectory of it. And so, what is it? Currently, the eye is over Fort Myers, and it's moving up towards Tampa in direction. And I think Clearwater is going to be hit, and there's one higher up. But let's see if we can find that city.
Yeah, I got it on screen share right here. So. Hurricane Irma made landfall on Marco Island at 3:35. It's a Category 3. But Naples, is that what you're thinking about? Oh, it passed through Naples. It was downgraded to a Category 2. It was sustained winds 110 miles per hour. Water rising. Reached about 3.5 feet above normal by 6 p.m. Oh man,
I'm curious about how the funding for actually paying for all this is going to work out, considering how quickly the administration in the States jumped on, we got to push through a bill for the funding when it's still so early in the hurricane season. I'm kind of curious why they aren't doing more of a blank check approach, where it's like, okay, let's just see how much damage there is, pay for it, and deal with it afterwards.
Right, and that, I guess we'll go back to this, but for now, that brings me to this timeline that I saw. So I think this was on 4chan. So this is what they wrote. They wrote 6 months, because all right. So just to get up to speed, right? Didn't Trump cut a deal to get the funding for the disaster relief in? Oh no, wait, that's the debt ceiling. I'm thinking of something else. Oh yeah, so he raised the debt ceiling.
No, the three are connected. There was. So he's trying to raise the debt ceiling and put the disaster relief into the same bill, and he's trading security for the Republican Party in the near future for Democratic votes right now. So it's a tripartite bill.
4D chess.
So what's going on here? So I know that he's negotiating with Democrats. And he just gave them what they wanted on debt ceiling. I mean, I don't understand it. Why would he do that? That really pissed me off, though. Seriously.
Poor Crow. Crow's only playing 2D chess.
This is just bullshit. No, this is absolutely bullshit. I don't approve of him giving the Democrats what they want. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care about the disaster funding. FEMA sucks. They're horrible at their job. They're very expensive, inefficient, and Walmart does a better job than them. So fuck them.
All right, so I guess I'll get to this right now because all right. So I guess related to all this, while this is all going on, we got the DACA coming to an end, and Trump delays it 6 months. So Trump delays it 6 months. So here's what this person thinks in terms of 4D chess. So Republicans have to choose between virtue signaling or loyalty to Trump during their primaries for 2018. There's literally no way they can stay silent on the issue when it's pushed back so far. Neither the House nor Senate have enough votes to get a Save DACA bill passed on the president's desk, let alone the votes necessary to override a veto. By pushing it back 6 months, Trump is forcing GOP traders to expose themselves right as people start paying attention to their local elections. This is September. DACA would officially end in April. Most primary elections in 2018 will be around May. There's no way the issue doesn't come up during local debates, press conferences, etc. And then, yeah. So it seems like it's a pretty, viable strategy.
I can just get rid of it.
Yeah, but I mean, this is
DACA's a thing for kids who are like not legal citizens, right?
Most of them aren't even kids. They're not even kids.
They're
in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah, no, there's a couple things. Let's touch on the 4D chess aspect first, though. I find it really weird. So, as a Canadian, in our political system, the head of our country is also the head of a particular political party. They can actually say how people are going to vote. But in the American system, it's intentionally adversarial. The president, although in lip service is either a Democrat or a Republican, isn't actually the head of the party in the same way. So you can't guarantee votes. So it's weird because it seems that Trump is more upset that he doesn't have a more Canadian-style political system than he is actually trying to have an elaborate strategy. Because basically what this is punishing is the very people who might vote with him, but it probably plays into what Ben Shapiro was talking about, that Trump is actually more of a right-leaning Democrat than he is a Republican, and he's more willing to work with people in sort of that New York wealthy mindset than he is to work with people who are more to the right and more towards I don't know what we'd say, conservative, like actual conservatism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like small government, essentially just normal people.
Well, that's who he doesn't like. He doesn't like the small government aspect. He likes to deal with the people who are in the know and who he's used to kind of like smoozing with. So those tend to be the very wealthy, but more left-leaning. So they're actually on the right part of the Democratic Party, but left of the conservative position by quite a bit.
Huh.
I hope Ben Shapiro runs for president for real.
Please, God, yes.
He's got the intellectual capacity to actually do it.
Like, if you could take a Terminator, make it have sex with like another Terminator, and maybe throw some Stephen Hawking jizz in the mix, I'm pretty sure you would have Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro is like the face of logic.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that's logical would be like, I'm gonna vote for this guy. And he doesn't play games. Like, he would just be like, this is the answer to the question. Well, I don't know why you have a problem with that.
Mark, I think you and I both said that he probably debates random appliances in his kitchen on a daily basis.
Yeah. I said cook 350. Why aren't you on 350 degrees yet? Like,
Exactly.
probably does. But what I wanted to move on to was, speaking of like disaster relief, a lot of people are pushing for viewers to donate to the American Red Cross, and I hear terrible things about the Red Cross. Believe me.
Don't donate to the Red Cross.
Promise.
Yeah, here's a post from Milo Yiannopoulos' Facebook page. He's wearing a tie. It says "fuck."
Milo really needs to learn how to get to the point. He tends to beat around the bush a little too much. He really needs just to say what he thinks.
I think that's like a mix of like, it kind of looks like Bruce Lee attire with like the yellow and red.
It looks like
yellow and
Kill Bill
black.
attire. Kill Bill.
Yeah.
All right, but yes, just read some comments. Very small percentage of Red Cross donations actually go to what they're supposed to be used for. Like, I think it's like 39% or less.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. Yeah, this is why I like private charity more than FEMA. If a private charity sucks, you can just stop giving to them. But I can't choose to stop giving to FEMA.
Yeah, and there's people here that are arguing both sides, but I get to read this comment here. Last year in Louisiana, instead of stockpiling supplies for the next emergency or giving them away to other charities after the floods, they threw them away in the garbage. Yeah, Salvation Army, like 96% of your donations go to the victims. Replies to this guy who tried to defend them. The CEO of Salvation Army makes $13,000, and the CEO of or owner of Red Cross makes like $657,000 a year.
Yep.
And just like all this, and like with the Haiti disaster relief, like they went there, spent all this money, and they built like 6 like temporary houses out of plywood and left. Like all these terrible things that are like not good about American Red Cross.
Well, the thing with the Red Cross is when it was founded, it was literally one of the first large-scale NGOs, its intent was to be able literally to set up shop and be a self-sustaining organism unto itself. And that's where it becomes so problematic, is when the Red Cross sets up, they expect to be in charge. and they might not actually be the best at bringing resources to bear. And in fact, as some people rightfully point out, they're often responsible for huge amounts of wastage. I think there was an article earlier today about people from the National Guard saying they would really prefer if the National Guard was able to actually kick the Red Cross out, or at least take over control of Red Cross infrastructure, just because they could actually delegate it much more efficiently than the Red Cross can.
But nah, fuck that. We got to go with the most inefficient way possible.
Yeah, so I would, I mean, I'm not one to talk. I can't lead by being an example, but I would think the best thing to do is volunteer, like physically. I think that Florida anticipated requiring 17,000 volunteers. Last I checked, they had like 10,000 something volunteers.
I would assume that the real problem, though, is once you get people to volunteer, how many people does it take to change a light bulb, kind of thing? You do need people with specialized knowledge to say you and you need to do this, and you and you need to do that, because oftentimes I find when you have the large scale volunteering, people have the best of intentions, but you tell them, okay, you actually need to pump this pump over here and don't stop pumping, and eventually they'll be like, I'm bored of pumping, I want to do something else, I want to save somebody, and they walk away from it, and suddenly there's a huge flood.
Well, I also wonder, like there's probably dozens of different types of jobs that you get to do when you're assigned to volunteer, but yeah, I wonder how, what the differences between volunteering in Florida and Texas, like, is there a different amount of flooding? Is there, I don't know. But this whole Irma thing is totally drowned out what happened with Hurricane Harvey. I haven't heard about Hurricane Harvey since it hit.
Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that? The sort of immediacy of the news pushing out previous news, which was actually important.
Yeah, because they didn't like how Trump was doing a good job, I guess. I don't fucking know.
Oh, hey, there's another person here.
What's up, Evan?
Hey, finally made it back. Yeah, dinner was not planned appropriately.
That's fine. We're just talking about the disasters. I was going to say something, I forgot what it was.
The disasters all over the United States, essentially, like the hurricane and all that.
Well, I do want to share this one bit of good news, though. After all of these hurricanes, it remains true. We will not allow Hurricane Jose into... Jose is late for DACA.
Yeah.
Remember, everything is his fault. Remember that. He is. It's totally all his fault.
Yeah, exactly. Trump is literally Hitler, guys.
Yeah, it's always his fault. Just ignore the fact that 2005 was also an active year for hurricanes. It's always humans' fault. Everything's because of CO2. It's always because of global warming.
Hurricane Jose is a drain on the system. But it's funny though, people are already saying like, well, because this is the start of like hurricane season, and people are already saying climate change is responsible for the increased amount of hurricanes. I'm like,
but there aren't an increased number of hurricanes.
Typically like this.
If you take a look at each decade, there's no trend in the number of hurricanes per decade versus CO2 emissions. There's no trend whatsoever. It just fluctuates up and down, up and down, up and down, and it just remains basically flat.
Yeah, the whole blaming of climate change thing is getting pretty annoying with everyone doing it. Like with the fires, that's a normal thing. With an earthquake, that's not anything to do with climate at all.
Yeah.
And then the hurricane, it just happens to hit the right.
I feel like if somebody could, they'd probably find the connection between earthquakes and fracking.
Well, of course.
Actually, there is a connection. Earthquakes are really good for fracking because they actually expose deep crust reserves.
Oh, fuck you, environmentalists.
Yeah, fuck you.
Oil.
Your facts are triggering me a lot, so you should be careful what you say about factually incriminating hurricanes and fracking. Just FYI.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
My gender.
Triggered.
Right now I'm identifying as an Asian guy, but I could switch potentially pretty soon too. We'll just see how much I bleed down there.
Wait.
Whatever.
Did you just assume your own gender?
Yeah.
And your own
Did you
race?
just assume your own race, you fucking racist?
I did assume those things because it's now I can do that.
How
But
do
if
we
you
know you're not like
don't, that is triggering as well.
Yo, I know what I should have titled this podcast episode.
what?
Ermagerd.
Oh God! Oh.
Oh God! You couldn't have saved that to the end so we can all go throw up. Oh my God! Look how proud he is. Just so proud of his bad joke.
Hurricanes do have last names.
Now, was it Katy Perry or who was the celebrity who was basically saying that the first hurricane was a purity test and that lots of Trump supporters lived in that area, ergo the hurricane chose that area to shut down?
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence.
That
Yeah.
bitch. That
God's
fucking,
wrath.
that fucking bitch. See,
You know,
gotta go
there's
fuck herself.
actually
Not a great actor, okay?
I don't have an expectation to win, but I saw that on I forget where it was, but there was a raffle that you could win like a lunch date with her. So I actually bought like $10 worth of tickets because I would love to go and be like, okay, so you're crazy. The hurricanes are retribution. Forgetting the fact that Houston primarily voted for Hillary.
Yeah, right.
And they got hit. And then everyone, with Florida always talks about all of the undocumented immigrants that are there. So you're fine with punishing them as well. And what about, I don't know, any of the natural disasters that happened during Barack's time?
Those don't count.
Those are totally independent of him.
Those don't count? Okay.
No, those don't count. You can't blame him.
No, you bringing this up is very racist of you, so I don't appreciate that at all. By the way,
Yeah.
I just want to let you know what's gonna happen when you talk to her. I'm pretty. You can't piss me off. Sorry, that's not how it works.
And until this, it's like her and Katy Perry both. It's like when you just did your job and didn't try and get involved. It's like you seem to be happier and more, I don't know, entertaining.
Yeah.
As an entertainer.
Job, sure. But doing their job is pretty stupid nowadays, so.
Steven Crowder had a documentary filmmaker on a while back, and he actually had some interesting things to say just about how celebrity culture works towards celebrities making extreme claims like that. And one of the best things he said is it's an industry where you're literally told how you feel is important because the feeling is what brings out what you're trying to emote when you're acting. So it's never wrong to try and reach for those feelings. And in doing so, you'll have people who have been told that whatever they feel is right in their careers. And suddenly they apply that to the real world unreflexively. And so it's like, if she was being ironic about what she said, sure, it would be a joke and bad humor. But I don't think she has the capacity to be ironic or self-deprecating when it comes to things that she's passionate about.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I highly agree with all that. Additionally, for the, I would say probably 99.5% of the time, any of the, like you said, with their feelings, any of the shit that they spew is never challenged. When she says this to a reporter, the reporter's probably sitting there maybe thinking she's crazy, but it's like, oh God, I'm talking to Jennifer Lawrence. I can't, I can't burn this bridge because this is my livelihood. So they'll just sit there, smile, nod, and, oh yeah, that's really an interesting thought. Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They don't.
Well, that's their in, so yeah, they can't. Well, I mean, it's their interview.
Yeah, it's kind of like the it's the child actor type syndrome, where if you're never told no, then you believe everything you say and do has intrinsic value, not just to yourself, but to anyone that should listen and take what you're saying as intelligent. Gospel? Yeah, and
whatever you want to say. I mean,
rarely
that was
is.
Well, that was the and I don't know if you guys have seen. There was a video Prager made a little while ago called Vitamin N, and it talked about one of the issues with just the overall generations, the fact that in the, I think, and don't quote me, watch the video, don't quote me, but I think it was like 1950 50s or 60s, whatever, they just, a lot of times parents would just tell their kids no a lot, and then that was the best generation ever. Now we have kids who just never grew up with they just have the, okay, dream whatever you want to do, you can do whatever you want to do, and we'll never tell you no expectations. Now we have everyone crying about, I went to work and my boss told me no, and I think I'm gonna go quit and get fired and whatever because you wanted to give me a raise, but it wasn't good enough, and I'm a woman, so I should jump out this window. And then this guy from Google said that I'm gonna be emotional. I'm gonna go, take a sick day, and so just like there's never any.
There's no incentive to like want to do
right.
best, essentially. Yeah. I get that.
You need to always want to make yourself better, and they just don't kind of go, oh, well, I say this, so, fuck you, and it's not my problem kind of deal, which...
Usually, from my perspective, I always called that only child syndrome, because I've only ever really seen that up close with, like, people who don't have siblings, but now that it's happening with, like, all kinds of fucking people, it's like, what are you guys doing? Can we come back to reality now?
Well, I think it's just one of those things that humans in general, we can default to binary thinking very, very easily. And the idea that something happens to somebody because they did something wrong, you can go even all the way back to Job in biblical times, and even further back than that with flood stories coming out of the Middle Eastern region, where literally it's like, what did those people do to deserve getting flooded? Well, it's like, well, they're part of the enemy, so they did something. Even when they may or may not have done anything. And it just sort of speaks to a worldview which is very, very cut and dry. And I think that's really dangerous, especially because a lot of celebrities have, or at least in their public personas, given up the ability to agree to disagree with someone. On any level, because as soon as you disagree, it's basically an insult to your person, ergo you flip out. I think one of the best examples of this was Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey, when they were both on, was it American Idol or was it X Factor? And they only lasted one show together because they insulted one another so greatly. And it's like, what was the insult? Sorry, Doc?
I think it was American Idol.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you saw that. Damn.
I have no idea. I've never watched.
It's just as shitty as you might imagine, Stan.
Actually, it's probably worse, to be fair, but it's
okay. Yeah, that's fair. It actually is.
Although I will say AGT has gotten better. American Idol and other ones have been like the same old. If you can sing well, we might like you, but if you can sing kind of good and not looking really hot, hey, you get to hit number 10. You're like, why are we doing this show anymore? What the hell?
Yeah.
Music just sucks in general. Sorry, guys.
Like besides Kelly Clarkson, is it Kelly Clarkson?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah, she was the first winner.
He was the first one. Who else was like?
Well, Carrie Underwood, I think.
I mean, there was
second or third season.
Yeah,
I think Carrie Underwood won a few years later, and she's been doing fairly good so far. But otherwise, everyone else that's won has just disappeared.
Just dropped off the fucking planet.
I haven't watched American Idol since the season with Clay Aiken and Ruben Studdard.
Yeah.
It's been so long.
Was that all the way back in 2003?
I guess. I feel old now.
Maybe. That's why you just gotta go watch AGT. The AGT is actually kind of interesting. Because they do crazy stuff.
But I love how this aside just sort of highlights how easy it is for us to forget about things, especially when we're being entertained.
Exactly.
No wonder Houston got forgot so quickly.
Yeah. So back to the hurricanes, though. One of the things I also want to touch upon is that since the hurricane, people are starting to badmouth capitalism because prices of certain things are going up. But a lot of it actually makes sense.
It's a good thing.
Like, here's the thing. Amazon's shipping of water has gone up. It's like normal price, but if you look at the shipping, if you want it like expedited shipping, it was like $183. Well, of course, who's going to drive? How many people are available to drive all the way to Florida and want to do so in the middle of hurricane weather? Like,
yeah, you got to compensate
shipping.
That shit.
Yeah, and there might only be like one driver, and he's got to make all these stops. Of course, it's going to cost a ton of money to ship it. And airplanes, I mean, a lot of it's not, from what I heard, not even the airline's fault, but like people who sell the tickets, like a third party or something like that, and booked flights. Like, of course of course it's going to go up in price. They're going to blame capitalism.
This is the biggest problem with American politics. It's the fact that good economics is bad politics. Yeah, for example, let's say price gouging, for instance. Price gouging is a good thing. Okay, first of all, it encourages people to actually be, less
Do the best they can.
less consumerist, if you will. Basically, take fewer resources. Try to be more efficient with the amount that you have. And secondly, on top of that, when you have higher prices, it encourages people to send stuff out very quickly. All these people saying, people should just do it for free. How many of you are doing it? How many of you? None of you. None of you are doing it for free. So the best thing you could do is increase prices, because that way people see, oh, look, we can make money off of this. Because do you know how much it takes to manufacture literally tons of bread, and then put it in trucks, and then ship it across the country, and then also, mind you, have to do it in disaster weather. Do you know how much it takes to do that? It takes money. Shit ain't free. There you go.
Yeah, and maybe not price gouging, but supply and demand and difficulty of access. Like, I mean, those things, of course, it makes sense to affect the prices. But also, I keep losing my train of thought.
Can I jump in there, Wazz?
Good.
I might offer a slightly different take than Crow, not in the fact that this is somehow unexpected. So if you have a natural disaster, most people's rational response is to go out and try and hoard particular products, which will immediately make them scarce in the time when things are going badly. And that causes problems, because then you don't have access to things which you would normally associate with, oh, I have these things, it's easy to get. And here's where, that's where charitable organizations, if they're doing their logistics well, they will be the ones who are going to companies and going, hey, we have this disaster going on. Would you like some good PR? Give us 300 million toilet paper rolls, because we're going to need those, right? And then they can bring them in and distribute as they see fit. The issue, though, is that you never know what the fallout of a major hurricane is going to be. You don't actually know how many people need what. So it becomes a real guessing game, and then your local store becomes the epicenter of people's ire, because suddenly they don't have anything, and they're having to charge more for what they have. So it's a cyclical relationship there that's inflammatory.
I have some stories about that, because I think people on this channel know I'm from Orville. I'm back in February when the people thought the fucking dam was going to collapse around us. I work for a store, a grocery store that's also a deli and a butcher shop, and we were the only place fucking open. It was on the mountain, because it was all right, no, everybody get the actual fuck out of here, because everybody thought the dam was going to just break off and it was going to be Waterworld essentially. But I have never seen milk fly out of a case so fast. It got to the point where all we had were fucking limes and green beans, and nobody wanted to either for some reason.
The only I guess my only, I mean, and I understand Crow's point there, but I understand if a business has stock on hand and they want to I mean, it happens all the time. Why do you think gas prices go up during, the summer and during holiday season? Why do you think you can book a hotel or an airplane flight? It'll be cheaper during the week than on the weekend. So price gouging happens every day, all the time anyway. So, but the only thing where I have a slight problem is when you see some guy that had taken his pickup truck, gone around and bought out every store's supply, and now is selling it out of the back of his truck for $99 a case for water. I mean, that's the only part where it's okay, I understand you're not doing anything illegal, but you're just doing something. Let's be honest, you're being kind of shitty. I mean, that's the only my only take on that. But price gouging happens every day in all kinds of businesses and services we use. People just don't think about it that way.
It also is a problem that whenever we're talking, sorry, Evan, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that to go back to the previous point. Yeah, I mean it sucks, but at the same time, remember, if this was a social or communistic society, yeah, they might get the. Well, take it back. If it was social or communistic society, then they probably still wouldn't get the supplies, and B, even if they did, it would be awful quality. So you're shipping, you
But
know,
that's
like
not real
delayed
socialism.
and just crap like water supplies. So I mean, yes, it's not good, but it is, as Winston Churchill once said, capitalism is the worst economic means to do anything until you look at everything else. So it's not you're not really saving facing anywhere else. So whatever.
It's also a problem with there's this fallacy called the fallacy of relative privation, and what it basically boils down to is the only measure by which we can measure our own suffering is by our status quo. And so for someone who might have a mansion who's been flooded, coming to the store and being like, hey, I can't afford that, and somebody who, or they can't afford it, and then somebody comes in and they're living in someone's basement and they're flooded, and they go, but I can't afford that now because you took it. And it's like, well, in both cases, they're trying to achieve the same ends. They would like that thing, but they're going to say that there's an inherent unfairness and disparity in who can get what and why. And that's actually quite true. And that's where you hope like the aid organizations can step in. But at the same time, it's like, once again, how do you predict who's going to need what and who's going to be somewhere in a particular time or place? Because the person who bought the toilet paper before you might not actually be any better off than you. It's just they got there first.
That's true.
That's why you need to increase
that's fair.
prices. Once you increase the price, the supply will go up because people are incentivized to send supplies very fast. And then once the supply and the demand match, the price goes back down to normal, and then you're good to go. And then afterwards, it breaks even because once the crisis is averted and there's a lot of supply left over, then the demand goes down, which means there's a lot of supply, and it's like a after Halloween candy sale where everything is super cheap. So then you go back and you break even.
Right, you buy it when it's
cheaper stuff.
You buy it all season, right?
Exactly. So you break even at the end. At one point, it's more expensive, and another point, it's far less expensive. There you go. You basically break even.
Well, the only thing I say to that, you break even, but when people are literally charging $90 for a case of water that would be $6, that's a little more than breaking even.
What are you talking about? If you take a look at those big packs of water, the ones that have 36 bottles in them, that's less than $3 per bottle. When you go to Disneyland and they charge $4.
Yeah, but if you're going to Disneyland, you're making a choice to go to an entertainment park. But
it's still less expensive.
But you're making a choice in this instance. People need this water to live or die.
People pay more.
If you're going to Disney World, you're making a choice. These people didn't have a choice to have a hurricane coming.
People pay more for water all the goddamn time than what they're paying right now in these higher price areas.
I understand that, but if you're going to use it as a concert or a amusement park, that's not you're not comparing the same thing.
But my point is that people pay more for water all the goddamn time, and yet they don't complain then. So the thing is, right now you have higher prices, but you get more supply later.
That's still a little bit different, though. To Stan's point, I mean, I get both sides of what you're saying. It's still like Stan's point is, it's a convenience. Right now in the hurricane, I'd say I need this. I might not have XYZ tomorrow as a survival thing. So
it doesn't matter when you need it. Yeah, people need food.
It absolutely matters when you need it.
No, it doesn't. People need food all the time. Is food free? No. We charge price for food.
That's not the argument. That's not the argument, though. That's not the argument.
Where do you draw the line? People need something, therefore you have to charge a lower price. No, charge the market price, and then you get more supply later, and the price goes back down.
You're charging the market price. 5 minutes ago, the market price was $10 a case, and now because you got there first, and you can turn around and sell it for $90 a case.
If you allow the store to charge a higher price, then people won't hoard the water in the first place, and there you go, problem solved.
The thing which I would just sort of add here, and I think we can kind of segue in that if you're dealing with a non-ideal circumstance, standard market procedure needs to have certainty, so you can predict what prices will be, and people will feel comfortable. If people don't have comfort or surety in relative prices, and therefore they can't predict how much they're going to spend, it's going to create social anxiety, and that anxiety might actually lead people to intentionally act in ways which we would say were amoral or unethical. So it goes beyond just market value, but rather it takes on sort of a nasty human element. We're creatures of habit, and we need to have some form of predictability to make us feel good. And when you're in the middle of a hurricane, there's very little that's going to make you feel good about the future and what's going to be happening. So I would say it's a double vulnerability there. I'm not saying, Crow, that your argument is incorrect, but rather that it seems to be lacking the human element.
Well, I don't really care much about the feeling element, as I prefer to call it, because under your system, you get empty shelves. Under my system, you get more supplies, and people get what they need for a price they're willing to pay. Yeah. So under your system, they get nothing. Under my system, they get what they need. So who's got the
They might get what they need, though, depending if they can afford it, right?
I think that we're all like, it's all depends on the amount. Like if price of water doubles, that's one thing. If price of water goes up 10, 20 times, and that's, I think, clearly an abuse. But
where do you draw the line here? As far as I'm concerned, let the free market decide. Because if you take a look at, let's take a look at Walmart, for instance. During Hurricane Katrina, Walmart was charging something like $8.60 per quart of milk. And guess what? People didn't hoard, and they got more supplies because they were able to get more money.
But that's the point. To buy more inventory. And what I've been saying, people are hoarding. They're hoarding, and then they're and again, I'm not saying what they're doing. It's, there's nothing illegal about, well, actually in Texas it is illegal to price gouge, but just from an aspect of, okay, these people are literally, they've literally lost everything, and you're going to drive the screw into them one extra turn so you can make some money.
If the store were
it's not a store. I'm seeing there's guys selling it on the side of the road out of the back of a truck. Okay, it's not a store.
They bought it from a nearby store. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they literally ran to the store, got there first, bought out everything, and then went to. And then
that's probably why they should give out like a limit of like a purchase limit.
Do you know why that happens? It happens because the store is criminalized for raising prices. If you just let them raise the price, they wouldn't have been able to hoard and sell it for $90 a case in the first place. Problem solved.
But then you still have somebody who's trying to make you pay $100 for like 12 bottles of water.
Right. It's getting like highly theoretical at this point. Because
the price is still $46.70 for 24.
Right.
And regardless of what the price is, what? You get more supplies later by incentivizing more supplies being sent in.
So let me ask you this, Crow. You got a hurricane coming across. You're evacuating. You're about to lose everything. You would have no problem walking up to the guy and say, "Oh, you know what? I didn't get my water. Here's $100 for 12 bottles." You would be like, "Well, that's fine. This is the way the system is."
Yeah, during Hurricane Sandy that happened. They raised prices, and guess what? I didn't bitch because I knew that it would mean more supplies later. There you go. What now?
Well, then you're a rare person, because I would be bitching up a storm, and I'm sure 90% of the country would be bitching up a storm.
So, Crow, you're officially a pure capitalist. Interesting.
Yes. Well, I understand economics. So there you go. Once you understand economics, it tends to stop you from bitching.
I feel like we could kind of put this topic to bed. You guys all right with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like
as nice as it is hearing Crow get fucking passionate about this.
I like that high energy. But
Ben Shapiro would be very proud of you.
We need
factual.
We need energy.
Yeah, he would be proud.
Energy.
I would want to hear Ben Shapiro's take on this. I hope he does talk about that soon. But I feel like at this point we're going to be talking in circles.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, we kind of
have 10 minutes left.
So the other things, I don't have much left to bring up. Yeah, the hurricanes.
I was going to say, did you
fires.
guys about Kid Rock yet or anything? Or?
Actually, I was wanting to bring up the NAFTA negotiations, which are going to be starting next week here in Canada, round 2. It's an interesting thing because Trump is going after what are they? Sections 17, 11, and 19, which are the sections in NAFTA which are settlement dispute provisions. And as a Canadian, and also I'd assume as someone from Mexico, it's actually a provision which we quite like, because in Canada, you're not supposed to collude when you are negotiating for something. So you aren't supposed to be affiliated with any of the companies that you are negotiating on behalf of. Whereas when it comes to the American delegation, that's not illegal. And so they're wanting to get rid of that because it's part of a clause which allows us to reinterpret or at least readdress settlements that seem to be biased towards one party, generally the United States. And oftentimes they can go after people for collusion while they were negotiating, because 2 months later they end up on the board of the company that they were advocating for indirectly. And that's actually a pretty scary thing from a Canadian perspective, because oftentimes America, being the biggest partner in NAFTA, can browbeat us pretty good. So interesting stuff.
America, fuck yeah.
That is wow. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Duff, I had no. NAFTA is pretty mysterious to us in the States, as far as I can tell.
Evan, where are you from?
Ohio.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know where this person's from. I want to know.
Is Duff from Canada though?
Oh yeah.
Nice. Got another Canadian.
Wait, are you from Quebec?
No, parlez-vous français?
Okay, so you're one of the slightly less inferior.
I don't know languages. I'm sorry. I'm grew up in America.
Yeah, that's French. You know,
I'm sorry, but we only speak one language, and that is freedom here.
I'm surprised we got a Canadian that talks.
And sometimes our second language is shotgun blast.
Well, actually, Doc, the question which I have is, as Evan just said, NAFTA isn't really on necessarily a lot of Americans' radar, partially because of just how powerful and autonomous the American economy is. You know, it runs itself.
Okay.
And this is one of those weird ones when Canadians, or some Canadians, I don't want to talk on behalf of all Canadians, when we look at America, where we tend to be a bit intimidated. Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who I'm not particularly fond of, had this saying, which he said in front of the American Senate. He goes, "You know what it is like to live next to America? It's like sleeping next to the elephant. At some point, the elephant's going to roll over. And you're going to be crushed beneath it." And with Trump's renegotiation, he's going back after some of the things which the initial delegations fought really hard for, in order to make it more equal in terms of negotiating power between the three countries.
Interesting.
As far as I'm concerned, I was just looking at if everyone just let down their trade barriers and have free trade. There you go.
Well, I mean, with
he just became a bigger Democrat over the weekend.
Huh?
Wait, what?
Well, it's interesting with that, Crow, because the problem, which we would argue, is that from the American perspective, corporate culture is the culture, and therefore the things which would make Canada unique would get eroded really quickly, because American companies would be able to buy up Canadian companies that are more focused on cultural industry, and we would lose our Canadianness to a large degree. And so when we're protecting particular, not all, but particular aspects of the economy, we're doing so to try and make sure that things that have been Canadian traditionally remain so. And even that's being eroded. So the Saudi Arabian government bought the Canadian wheat pool about 1.5 years ago. But also when it comes to our exports and things like that, it's bad enough that most of our exports read "Made in China."
Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, America used to make t-shirts, and you don't see us bitching out, oh, our tradition, our long-standing tradition of making t-shirts is now gone to China. Really, who cares? If it's better, it's better. It's more efficient.
And plus, Duff, I feel like if I was some kind of like hardcore militant SJW right now, I'd probably tell you you're a white person. What are you talking about? You don't have a culture.
Well, see, that's where I would raise the thing that Aboriginal peoples in Canada have been making exactly the same argument for about really? 250 years now.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I'm sure that you wear glasses too, so.
Yeah. Okay. Look, Aboriginals are retarded. There you go. Problem solved. They're done.
Ouch, bro. Ouch. On behalf of my Aboriginal friends, that's mean.
I don't care what's mean. They're fucking retarded. They complain.
For me right now, I don't appreciate that at all. I feel very violated. My safe space has been violated now. Thank you.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
We got about 5 minutes. I got one other thing I wanted to bring up just because I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for any kind of news on this topic.
Tell me it's not another Irma Gerd joke.
No. I've been waiting because Trump promised that he would push concealed carry reciprocity legislation. And I recently saw, I don't know what the article was, but it said Paul Ryan stalls concealed carry reciprocity legislation and doesn't want Congress touching it because he says he feels it's not the right time.
Okay, how about this?
And I think that's bogus.
Yeah, here's the thing. I guarantee that people will respect these guys a lot more if they just grew some fucking balls for once. Because it seems like people like Paul Ryan are more concerned about satisfying the media than they are about satisfying the people who actually vote for them.
It's because they don't understand. Just say fuck it and do what you're gonna do.
Exactly.
And that's one of the I can't remember who was talking about this, but I think one of the problems that at least with the GOP or the Republican Party has had is that they keep selecting these non-offensive people, and it's like that's not how you that's not how you get people to like you, by just being a doormat. You got to actually have some fucking balls.
I feel like these guys during the Obama years when they kept saying, if we get this, we'll do this. Now they got to the point where like, oh shit, we actually have to back up all of our tough talk.
Maybe so.
I don't really have any intention of ever backing up my tough talk. And it's like, it's kind of like, okay, fine. You keep saying you're going to get this. Here you go. Here, we're giving you everything you want. Now prove it. And they're proving that, to say what I think Crow might, a bunch of fucking ballless pussies. That's what they are. It's like you've been given everything you want, and now all of you are curling up and sucking your thumb. You talk tough for 8 years about, if we could just repeal and replace, for example. Okay, now you can do it. Whoa!
Quick question there, Wazz. As the resident Canadian here, when they're using the term reciprocity in terms of concealed carry, what does that mean?
Right, that would mean any state, or so if you have a concealed carry license in any of the 50 states, it would be recognized in all other 49 states.
Oh, hell.
Okay. I now understand why that would be considered such a problem, because that would become a states' rights issue. And if the federal government were to...
No, it's not. Second Amendment.
Well, actually, because the states, the federal government exists to make sure that all the states adhere to the Constitution, and the Second Amendment, most people... who love the Constitution would argue it's the founding principle. It's like one of the most founding principles.
Yes, state governments have to abide by the Constitution too.
Yes.
For sure.
So that's why the federal government exists. So that's not really a states' rights thing. That's that's what the federal government exists for.
Now, does the federal government control arms legislation for long-arm firearms already?
They have a federal Firearms Act of 1934, which basically just fucked over anyone wanting to get an automatic weapon. So basically, here's how I see it. If I were in Trump's position, I would just put forward legislation saying all guns legal, concealed carry legal, open carry legal, nationwide, no permits. Fuck you if you don't like it. Second Amendment, done. That's the entire bill.
I would probably do the same thing because I'm in California and our gun laws are fucked, man.
You're in California?
I'm in California.
Honestly, dude, I think in the original Superman movie, Lex Luthor had the best idea. Let's just put a missile right in the San Andreas Fault and just clip California right into the Pacific Ocean.
Can you give all the smart people a year to evacuate the state?
No. Because California, there's about 6 of you. Okay.
Exactly. They have to wait.
Hey, we gotta save Ben. Okay, we gotta save Ben.
Google. Get them out of here. Google it, yeah. But one of the things, it sounds to a lot of people, it sounds like just the straight up Second Amendment done. It sounds extreme to like a lot of people that aren't like all in. But with the amount of laws that California and all states have, like the amount of laws, just like in quantity, it seems much easier to just go ahead with that, because if you take them away one by one, like it takes forever. There's like a ridiculous amount.
I have a question though. Now, because I know that states' rights are obviously things so we can make our decisions and do it autonomously. But if Trump tomorrow walked up to, I don't know, whoever has the microphone and says, "Hey, just a heads up, literally every gun law is revoked, and you can all just have whatever the hell you want." Would that be like dictatorial in a sense, or would that be
That would exceed the presidential's powers. Yeah.
You can't do that.
The president can't do that, but if the federal government did that, then that would be fine because it's obeying the Constitution. You know, when if a state like, let's say Wisconsin, decided to ban people from saying the word no, then that would be a First Amendment issue. And you can't say, "Oh, but states' rights," because it's the First Amendment. It's super different. If you take a look at the 10th Amendment, it says powers not enumerated in the Constitution belong to the states. So if it's not in the Constitution, then it's a state power.
Gotcha.
So there you go.
And I feel like that would, at some level, have to pass through the Supreme Court to be interpreted.
Probably.
The 10th Amendment is pretty fucking clear. It says it right there.
No, I mean, if there was like a measure just like go ahead, Second Amendment, that's it, done. Like that would probably have to still pass through. Like I feel like that would have to go through the judicial branch at some point.
No, I mean, if it was like if it just pulls it in Obama, you're good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I think that would have ended Obama's presidency.
Speaking of states' rights and the different levels of power, the one last thing I wanted to mention was, speaking of DACA, the end of DACA, I saw the mayor of Chicago. I saw a video with the mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, saying to all dreamers, you have nothing to worry about at all. This is a Trump-free zone.
Except for getting murdered, because they get 60 people murdered every weekend in that city.
Hey, they're white. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Actually.
Well, isn't this the oddity about this particular thing is that although Trump says he or had promised to eliminate DACA, he's now pivoting on that particular issue and being a lot less deterministic in his use of language. Because the thing with DACA, as I understand its intent, but it creates a really weird loophole by which you could literally border hop while pregnant, knowing that if the child is born in the States, you will be able to stay. And that's based off of a principle which is long established, because generally where you are born is where your citizenship is allocated. And if you're an American and say you were born in Ethiopia, you would actually get an Ethiopian birth certificate and then have to get rid of it after the fact. But it's assuming that you're going to leave because you're actually from somewhere else. Whereas what the DACA Accords seem to have allowed for is intentional citizenship by skirting the law.
Music.
Oh, I was about to get funky and stuff. Damn.
Yeah, we're about to drop a beat and drop it like it's hot.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. There's probably going to be more updates on this whole DACA thing. For sure. So it's hard to keep track right now with everything else that they're trying to, everything else going on in the news right now.
Well, what I find interesting about DACA is that during the campaign, Hillary basically said DACA was not a good thing, and that essentially these people should be shown the door. But because that seems to be pushed to the back of the bus there.
JB Dubs in the chat says Trump didn't pivot. He deferred to Congress, who was supposed to be the one to do it in the first place.
He's making them do what they're supposed to do. More of them talking tough and curling up like a bunch of bitches.
Yep.
Once it's time for shit or get off the pot, they're not doing anything.
Yeah, and the best answers has been pretty active in the live chat. So thanks guys for talking a bit, and also.
Oh yes, and best answers. I do realize it was a wine tasting, which is I would need lots of wine if I actually won that to not throttle her for the ridiculousness she says.
But yeah.
Throttle her with love, Stan, right? With love?
Yeah, with love.
Choke her in the other way.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I saw videos this week going around, or at least quotes of Democrats saying, being in opposition to DACA before, now they're for it, and how President Obama was saying, I can't do it all by myself, and then he did. It's just a mess. It's a mess.
Well, is that just highlighting that allocation of powers across the distributed branches of government have eroded to such a degree that we can get presidents who are basically using the veto power plus their ability to create laws and basically push it through more so than they should be?
Yeah, they're all powerful. They're all powerful, and they're just gaudy. That's how it is.
All right. Well, that's an hour, 5 minutes. I think we're good. Thanks, guys, for... I think this is a pretty good episode, don't you think?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Pretty good. So if you're watching, you should subscribe and share us, and check the links for other people who you can subscribe to, particularly Roaming Millennial and Matt Christiansen, speaking of whom, he's about to have his podcast in 25 minutes. If you don't already know, we recommend you watch his show and come back next week and do it all over again.
All right.
Sweet.
Peace out.
Good night.